The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm really good. Are you good?
I'm really good. I'm really excited for today's episode. We have a mega letter.
Oh, mega letters.
Sweetie
And-
writes a ton.
And a Chester letter.
And a Chester letter, yeah. Chester's not a mega letter. Let's just put it that way. When it comes up.
The juxtaposition of these two letters
Right?
could
Yep.
not be more different. However, I always do enjoy a Chester letter, no matter how short.
Oh yeah, definitely. And with regards to the mega letter, I think this is the first one. I was joking with Jamie earlier. We have to break up some sections into separate videos based on the content. One paragraph goes for like 3 pages. It's like, sweetie, like, paragraph break. You know? She just kept going and going and going. It was such a pouring of thoughts onto paper that she just couldn't help herself. So it's one of those funny moments where I know when Jamie, because she has the transcriptions of the letters, opened up the book and turned the page, it was probably like, oh my goodness, when does this paragraph end?
I had trouble reading it.
Yeah.
I had to do the thing with a piece of paper and a pencil, to get through it, because it all just kind of goes together. Like I said, there's the margins on these pages are so tiny. So yeah, it was definitely a mega letter, and it was definitely a flow state. She was in a flow state.
She was, yeah.
She was getting it out, and she just types. I bet you she. Oh man, I wonder how many words per minute she did.
I don't know if I'm faster than her, or if she's fast, or if she was faster than me. I think we would have probably tied, because I could sit there and I could type this letter up probably in about 2 hours, carefully going through an hour or two, the 7 pages. And I think she probably spent, because she's also having to figure out what she's going to say. She's probably spending, I would say, 3 to 4 hours putting a letter like this together. Her round robin, or circular, as she's going to call it. And it's going to go to everyone. This is one of her round robins or circulars on carbon paper that was split off and sent to the various family members. We see her addressing it to everybody. She's letting everybody know what happened, because actually in our last episode, Jamie, in episode 95, she'd mentioned that there was a big letter. There was a letter that she'd written to Jeanne and Glenn, thanking them for the percolator. And she said, I know you just read my long letter, but we couldn't get into it last week because of how big it is. And here we are today. And we referenced, Sweetie referenced that Lewis was very sick for a time. So we're going to hear about that. And then we're going to hear about, especially I know the people in Doylestown really want to hear about this, the school. Lewis going to school. And people in Doylestown are like, is it that one? Yes, it is. And for everybody who doesn't live in Doylestown, you're in for a treat of a very, very significant story and part of Doylestown's history here that is no longer here. And we're going to get into some of that history today. And then we're going to talk about some first grade stuff and some other things. So I don't want to waste too much time going over what we're about to get into, because we've got 7 pages or so of mega letter coming up in today's episode. And then Chester. But yeah, Jamie, do you want to go through the housekeeping here?
Oh man, I did a good job that one time.
You did do a great job that one time.
But I kind of just want to get through it, because this is a really big letter and we have a lot to cover in it. She goes through so much. So I think we have a lot to discuss. So Facebook, we have a page. Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just download those episodes and send us an email and let us know what you think. And YouTube, like, share, and subscribe.
There we go.
All right, cool. Let's get into it.
So we start the story up. We're now in November of 1951, and we'll see how little Lewis is doing. "363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, November 25th, 1951. Dear Mama, Papa, Jeanne and Glenn, Sister and Clan, Frank and Clan, and Florence and Clan. I've promised I'd get this letter written for some time, and since I don't feel like doing anything strenuous, I'm going to get it done if it kills me to write it, and you to read it. But Papa, I have been sick. You wrote in this letter received yesterday, contents received, that you didn't want me to write back and say I'd been sick, or Lewis had been sick, or Lou had been sick. But the truth is, all of us have been. Lewis with his tonsils again, and Lou and I with bad colds. I've had a real chest cold, the like of which I don't believe I've had since I was in high school. And my nose has been so stopped up, I could hardly sleep, or if I did, woke to the feeling I was being strangled. I don't believe Lewis has ever gotten rid of that germ since the initial sickness of croup. He has been better, and then sick again since then. The doctor bill for the croup was $9.99 plus a $5.50 prescription, and then he went back to school for a few days, got sick with a high fever and sore throat that cost me $3 office call and $5.25 for a prescription of neopenzine, sulfa, and penicillin that made him too nauseated to take. Then, when the school doctor examined him and found his throat red, she sent him home and said he should have more terramycin that I couldn't afford, and so drove with him to the Naval Hospital, where they gave him a good going over and gave us some aureomycin. I gave all that to him, and he seemed pretty good. Until Tuesday, we drove over to Norristown to Elizabeth's for the first time since they'd moved. And didn't he get sick and throw a fever when we got home? 103 degrees. I noticed it when he went to bed, and started watching pretty closely, but when he seemed almost delirious, and it was hard to rouse him from sleep, I called the doctor again, who gave him another penicillin shot. I've yet to pay that bill. He missed school on Wednesday, but since Thursday and Friday were Thanksgiving vacation, he just missed one day. Here it is on Sunday, and he had a fever and sore throat again, so I tried giving him the expensive neopenzine again, and so far he has kept it down. The local doctor and the school doctor said he should have his tonsils taken out. The Navy doctor said if it was his kid, he'd bide his time and wait and see. But I'm beginning to wonder what you think about it, and I'm beginning to think it would be better to go ahead and have them taken out, rather than fool along this way, losing out on school, and he looks like a sheet most of the time. He isn't underweight according to the charts, and his heart is good, so they told me at the Naval Hospital. He had been complaining of pains in his legs, which made me worry about the possibility of rheumatic fever. I had to give him alcohol sponge baths on Tuesday night to get his temperature down. I still shudder at the thought of another convulsion. On Tuesday, the doctor showed us his tonsils, and they did look real red and had yellow spots on them. If you stop and consider that I could have them taken out at the Naval Hospital for the price the doctor charges for one house call at night, it seems foolish to try to doctor them, if they should come out. I wish you'd write me what you think of this, please, and as soon as you can. Would be appreciated. Lou got sick with this cold about a week ago and dragged himself back and forth to work, coughing like an active TB, but he kept moving for fear they'd shove him into bed at sick bay. He had started painting the front room so that we could bring our things into the house and open a sort of showroom there. He was in the midst of it, and so continued, even though he felt like stopping. We've still a long way to go with furniture sitting around, as though we were being evicted. Sticks in Miss Darst's craw, too, her being so neat and tidy. I got mine about 3 days ago, started out as a chest cold, and now I have it in my nose and am truly miserable with it. I tried taking some of the neopenzine, and thought it might be helping, but when Lewis started in last night with fever and sore throat again, I decided he needed it worse than I do, and so I'm giving it to him, and I'm trying some more sulfa, which gave me a fine case of hives the other night, as well as making me sick at my stomach. I want to tell you that most kids go through a stage of collecting things like stamps, bottle tops, etc. But not Louis. He collects empty capsules, and the catch of it is that they are capsules he has personally emptied, and you'd probably be quite surprised at the number he has stashed away in a box. He puts up with the doctor's prodding and poking and examinations all right, and even takes the medicine well, except for the penicillin shots, and then it takes Lou and me and the doctor to give it. As I wrote the folks earlier, he was much disappointed when the doctor sent him home from school, and then he had the penicillin shot, and it seemed as though he put the blame entirely upon the doctors for his ills. And through his tears he said, "The only doctor I love is Grandpa Demaree. He'd never do me this way."
Poor little baby.
Aw, poor Louis. Doesn't this sound like fun? All this medicine and drugs of the 1950s, which, by the way, insert disclaimer here. Special disclaimer. The medicines and other medical treatments noted in these historical letters from the 1950s are specific to Sweetie's story and might not be recommended today, or are even more regulated than they were so many years ago. As such, none of the medical information contained within these letters is to be construed as medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Thank you for your attention to this message. Now, back to the show. Okay, so that being said, let's talk about some of the new names of drugs that we hear that she's administering and the doctors are administering to little Louis. He's quite sick. We've seen this before. There's the whole question about the tonsils. We talked about that in an earlier episode. She's making the decision so far not to have the tonsils removed, but she just doesn't really know. She's concerned about convulsions because we had that whole episode at the Philadelphia Naval Hospital. We remember Dr. Roby said, "What are you doing with all this sulfa?" And what do we get? Sulfa, sulfa, sulfa. Just in the background. Just that's the generic, basically, at this point for Sweetie, which is like, if all else fails, sulfa time. And then we hear, I think, the first mention of ones that I saw throughout the letters after this point, aureomycin. I looked that one up. I don't think that one's around anymore. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's tough. These are really strong medicines. Neopenzine. I'm saying that right. Yeah, another one she's saying things are making him feel nauseous. She's not quite so sure. And then we get the penicillin shots, at least two being mentioned here. Sulfa and penicillin. That sounds great.
I mean, with the sulfa, to me, like being on the outside of this and reading her, this is her saying this. It made me sick. I broke out in hives. You know what? I think maybe that's your body telling you that the sulfa is not good for you. That's just what I'm saying. Like, I think, I understand she's like, oh, this is my cure-all and stuff, but I don't think that was a very good idea what she was doing with all that sulfa. It's a very difficult thing because it's like he's constantly getting sick. And it's like she's got these doctors saying take his tonsils out, these doctors saying leave him in. And when you have like a little boy and you're trying to make him feel better, she has to feel so helpless. So, and I really don't think that the tonsils would be like solving the problem.
Yeah.
Of course, this was like, way back when. But I definitely feel for her in in these moments, because not only is she sick, but her husband's sick too.
And it seems to me that the source of the sickness is most likely Lou at the base, because he is refusing to go to sickbay. It's around Thanksgiving. He's thinking, I don't want to get stuck at sickbay. These guys avoid sickbay whenever they can. We know that from like all of season 1, all of season 2. Whenever they can get out of sickbay, they get out of sickbay. Lou, you're bringing things back from the base. You're giving them to your wife, probably, whatever germs are out there. Your son is 6 years old. And now we have to consider you also are living with a 90-year-old woman. And the immune system of anybody in their 90s probably shouldn't be also battling. We don't hear that Darst is sick. But
no, luckily.
Yeah. It's probably not a good idea. Like, go to sickbay, Lou. You're probably the one causing some of this.
I don't know. Louis is in school now with Goodness
there's
knows how many other
yeah,
children.
that's true.
And they are not the cleanest bunch at that age.
Mhm.
So, and typically, yeah, like sicknesses will move through a school because you got all the kids in. It's
Yeah.
wintertime too. That's
Mhm.
another thing. They're spending more time indoors. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I wouldn't rush to blame the base and Lou.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there's been some really interesting like medicines that they've been going through. She's kind of dealing with this right now.
Mhm.
And also, well, they got to visit Elizabeth. That's nice. I
Yeah.
hope they didn't get the baby sick. So, and yeah, and then he's just this poor kid. Like he's been in the hospital so many times.
Mhm.
Like I remember you before we even remember when we were talking about starting the podcast,
Mhm.
and I remember you saying, "Oh, he was sick all the time,"
All the time.
and you were right. Like
Mhm.
I just can't get over like how often he gets it real bad. So maybe I don't know. I don't know. I guess well, it's not maybe the tonsils need to come out, but we're not going to find out that in this letter.
No, we're not. And it's funny, we were talking about things before the podcast. I was talking to a neighbor that I had before I moved back up to Doylestown, and it was an older gentleman. And we were talking about, I was like, it's interesting, all this medicine in the 50s. And he said, oh, yeah. And he'd been a kid back at that time period. I said, do you remember sulfa? And he was like, oh, yeah. And it's
Really?
like, as if he hadn't thought. It's that idea of like when you don't think about things for like 30 years, and especially from like our generation, you don't ever expect us to be really talking about it and be like, what's going on with all the sulfa? And you could just see the flash of recognition being like, oh yeah. So it was widespread. Like they were using this all the time. It's just really powerful medicine. And it was the miracle cure. But now we're adding all these other names of interesting prescriptions and things that are of the time. So, hey, maybe some of our audience, if you guys are in the medical profession, let us know. Have you heard of these medicines even today? Is this something that is highly regulated and still used, or is this just like a complete thing of the past? Would be really curious to know that from some of the medical experts who might be listening. But yeah, now we're going to move into another part of the letter here. We're actually going to be going into a whole part here about Lewis going to school. I mentioned long ago about his adjustments at school, but didn't elaborate much on them, and so I shall do that now while I'm talking about him. When Jeanne and Glenn were here, which happened to be the second week of school, I think, he was having some difficulty in making his letters. They'd be done fairly well, but they'd all be backwards. That bothered me, along with the fact that he didn't know what he had made. He had laboriously copied her sample letter. Some would be right, and some reversed. But when he got his paper home and I asked what it was he'd say, I don't know what it is, but I made it. I tried a few sessions after school and in the evenings with him, trying to get him to remember, and we usually ended up with him in tears and me pretty hot under the collar. I knew that was wrong, that it was punishment for both of us, and it seemed pretty futile too, and so I just quit. I hoped nobody else in the family would find out that I had bred a dunderhead, and yet I knew he wasn't a dunderhead, for he can remember things that people say. He can remember where he has secreted things from us, and can come up with them just at the opportune time. It seemed that there must be something else amiss besides his capacity for learning, for I knew he had it. I let it go along, without further tutoring at home. I use the term tutoring loosely. And he seemed to bring home papers with more and more letters made, and more of them correctly, and I did discover that if he were allowed to tip the paper around to accommodate his left-handed writing stance, that the letters more often turned out to face the right way. I wasn't too favorably impressed with his teacher at first either. You've seen the movies of her, I suppose. She talks rather hurriedly, and I always feel when I'm talking to her that she is mentally going over a list and checking off the things she has done, and is reminding herself that she still has many, many things to do, and not enough time to do them, in especially if I stand and talk to her. It is almost as though she is saying, yes, yes, all the time I'm talking, and then, when I get through asking me what I had just said, actually, she doesn't. I don't think so, at least, for she has usually been able to give me an intelligent answer to what I've said, but that is the feeling I've had. Another thing was that Lewis would come home and say rather forlornly, "We played beanbag today, and I didn't get a chance to play." Beanbag is really playing drop the handkerchief, but they use a beanbag instead of a hanky. I asked why, and he didn't know, so I tried to smooth it over by saying there were probably a lot of little children, and they didn't get all the way around the circle before the recess time was up. He denied this, saying that sometimes they got lots and lots of turns, but he never had a chance to play. I puzzled over this, but didn't come up with any solution, and besides, we were troubled with his discipline. You know he is a rather chatty individual, and he and I have been much company for each other. He has had free run of the house. He got all my attention, and if he needed to entertain himself, he could be the cast of characters, sound effects, man, and audience, all at once. And it seemed that when things got too quiet, he produced a few choice sound effects, guaranteed to get some attention, even if it wasn't entirely favorable, and the end results were that, quite often, he had to leave his seat and go sit by the teacher, where she could keep an eye on him, or else he had to move his table over away from the other kids, much like the dunce in the corner, except there was no hat nor stool. Jeanne probably told you about our going to get him at school and having him weep over his public shame. And at that time, too, I was having stormy sessions with him over his letters at night, and these things prompted me to just do an about-face and let him do the best he could. We solved the discipline problem when I made up a chart and let him have a star to paste on for each day he was a good boy and didn't call down the wrath of his teacher. It became a record of his good days at school, and was a further reminder that Santa Claus could look at the chart and count the days he was good or bad, and then decide what he should or should not get for Christmas. He is as truthful as any would possibly hope for, volunteers the information that he saw one little clown doing something he shouldn't, started to laugh, and then realized he must not, and so stifling it made more of an explosive sound than if he had laughed. He denied himself the star for it, but just the same he rocked with laughing while he told me about it. The days he's been sick and unable to go, he gets the benefit of the doubt and gets a star, and I'm right pleased to say there are few blank squares.
Mm-hmm. He did a good job.
He did.
I actually do, like, my little boy's left-handed too.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had his problems with his letters, and he also needed, when he could turn the papers, so much easier.
I'm left-handed as well, and it's absolutely the case, especially with cursive. I almost turn the paper when I write cursive 90 degrees.
Seriously.
It kind of drifted. I think it started like at a different angle and then just kept going. And that just seems to be a thing. So with that, but there's some frustration. He's not having a good time with his first grade teacher here, who's never named. Her name is Mrs. Houk. We're going to hear about Mrs. Houk some more. She's very remembered in a Miss Darst kind of way. So we're gonna get some more content. He's gonna be relieved when he doesn't have Mrs. Houk anymore, but he's gonna have Mrs. Houk for a while. But at the beginning, Mrs. Houk is actually is an older teacher at this point at the Doylestown School. And I know there's other people from his generation that are still in his class that are still around. I'm sure they remember her as well. She was a very tough teacher, and we get this description of Sweetie being like, I think she's kind of listening, but not really listening. Like, she just doesn't.
She's kind of dismissive. Yes. I know everything you're telling me. Yes. This is a pointless conversation, and it's keeping me from doing all the other things that I need to do.
Yep.
I have, things I need to do, and you're keeping me. What did you say? But yeah, I think that's kind of funny. But but I like how she described. She's like, she doesn't do that, but I get that feeling from her. Like, that's a cool description. She's just got such a way with words. Right. Although the breaded dunderhead Miss Sweetie, like, come on. Like, that was not nice. So, but I like how she recognized that pushing him, like, I think you need to do it this way, and he was having an issue, and I like how she recognized that, backed off, and that probably, like, kept the pressure off of him. There is one thing I did want to mention before we move on.
Yeah.
She said that Jeanne and Glenn were there when he first went to school, and this confused me the first time I read it. Something about the movies. I'm sure you've seen movies of her, I suppose.
Yeah, there's some.
So I don't want to explain it because like it comes. But when I saw that, I was like, "You've seen the movies of the teacher? Is she famous or something?" So I did just want to point that out for our listeners because it does come up later on in the questions was answered for me. So I thought that actually, I was like, oh, okay, well, now it makes sense.
Yeah, but also we want to talk about the school here, and I was talking about this at the beginning of the episode, as this is such a giant subject. This is not a subject we could possibly cover in just one episode, but I wanted to get a visual on the school. And also, we know that Lewis is walking to school, so we also know he's walking to the church. So he walks a little distance down really up the road, past the Lutheran church that's there, especially people familiar with Doylestown. Then they usually go up the hill. We've talked about how they go up the hill into town. That came up in the season finale of season 2. They're at a sort of a lower point on North Main Street, even though I think the association in everyone's minds would be north is just elevated, but it's not. So he's going to go up the hill about maybe 3 blocks, and that gets to the Presbyterian church. And then about a block away is the school. Now, every now and then she'll take him to school, but most of the time Lou has the car at the base. So there's no other option here. They're walking into town. But it's probably about a 10-minute walk at most to be able to go back and forth, between the house and the school.
That's crazy to me. Just like thinking about having a little 6-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he doesn't look like he's 6.
Right. He's taller.
He's definitely taller. He's one of the bigger kids. But I mean, and it is only 10 minutes. Right. And she's not walking him herself, right?
No, he's walking independently up there.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder what mothers today would think of that.
Oh yeah. It's certainly a different world. But speaking of a different world, this school is no longer there, but this is a photo from a postcard of the Doylestown school.
That is absolutely a really beautiful school.
Mm-hmm. The Doylestown School was built in 1899, so that's where you're seeing like that sort of like late Victorian architecture by a very famous architect named Milton Bean. There is an auditorium in that front section. It is 4 stories with a basement. You see all those points on the top. You have the beautifully landscaped grounds. You could see the macadam area, which is the playground spot right in front of the school. The trees are kind of blocking the view of some of the building here. But just to give people the perspective, when he walks up the hill past the church, this is what he sees. And he goes in those front doors to report to school. And this is K through 12. So everybody's going to the school at the time. So the people in Doylestown, if you're thinking, what about CB West, which at the time opens in 1952 and it's Central Bucks High School? It is not open yet, so everybody is going here. There's one auditorium he said he never even saw. It was the older auditorium on the 3rd floor, I think in the front of the building, and then there's a larger auditorium in back that they use for general assemblies and things. So, yeah, this is a massive building. I'll have to ask him what the class size was here. We'll do some research on that and how many kids are going through these doors each day. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2,000 kids. Mm-hmm. Going in and out of these doors each day. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'm thinking too, like, the older kids are in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point.
I would really love to know. I would definitely love to know. Yeah.
There's a lot to it. I also found another postcard that has a color photo. Well, not color photo. I guess it's a lithograph that was colorized at some point. But gives another idea. It gets the trees out of the way, so we can see more of a close-up, and we see people dressed up for school here on that side building.
Look at all the people with their hats.
Yep. I love that with that. Yeah,
I love the hats, and I love the you can see it's like they're all dressed in like nice clothes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a really great image. I believe my dad said this was known as the most beautiful schoolhouse in all of Pennsylvania when it was built. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was. The detailing on here. The thing is, what happens to this schoolhouse if you come to Doylestown today, or the people in Doylestown are like, I don't know where this is. And anybody who would visit are going to be like, oh man, I want to go see this wonder of architecture here. There's a bit of a problem with that. And this happens in 1973. So we're basically going to, I wouldn't say break the 4th wall, but we're going to fast forward the history books a little time for when it's after Lewis having left school by quite a while. And what happens in 1973. And the reason that we cannot see this school today, this is as reported in the Reporter from Lansdale. There is a horrible fire that breaks out, and it just cannot be repaired. And the paper is correct when it says end of a landmark. The roof catches fire, from what I understand of the article. It gives sort of some of the backstory of what happened. You can see all of that architecture is just Done.
It looks like a murder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
how awful.
And this happens February 1973. Now, the article gets into some of the details of what happened. And the midpoint of this article, it says, "This has been a fire trap for years, you know." One of the individuals says, it says, "The original building was stone construction, but the interior was wooden with the floors heavily oiled." So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody gets that. It's basically irreparable. And how do you repair old architecture like this without a massive investment to rebuild it? But yeah, the imagery that's absolutely shocking is that the main one where the roof catches, and then of course oiled floors that are all wooden inside. This reminds me of the photos we saw when Notre Dame caught fire not too long ago.
Oh, God, that was awful.
Yeah. So,
And I mean, like you can see like the damage done. So was any part of this salvaged?
There was an arch that remained, the front arch, and the rest was gone. And now they have a parking garage where the location of the school was, right there on the corner of, I believe it's Broad and Court Street. So for people in Doylestown, you can go to the site of the old school. Now, there may have been some other parts kind of salvaged from the school after it came down later on, because some people were in town and like to salvage hardware and things. So we'll work on some video content about some things that may have evaded complete destruction that might be in my dad's basement, allegedly, from the school. But yeah, I know people in Doylestown are very well aware or have heard stories about this. That is exactly what happened, and you can see the ruin that is there today. But the whole time that Lewis is going to be going through Central Buck School District, this is absolutely still standing. So we get to experience it as if it's still there, which is a really beautiful thing. It's just the sadness is we know that this is not a location that you can see today. But continuing with stories from school, this is part of the 3-page paragraph that Sweetie wrote. The first part has to do, of course, with her concerns that Lewis is a dunderhead, or Lewis. And then we're going to go into some more social activities that are going on at the school. "I thought this year we'd try to do something special for his birthday, and thought at first I'd have a party for him here at home. But when I sat down to make up a list, discovered there wasn't a boy I could invite. There isn't a boy on the street. Only girls, and I sort of hated to have a party for him with only girls here, and when Miss Darst reacted with open-mouthed horror at the idea of a bunch of kids on this hallowed ground, I gave up the idea. But taking the bull by the horns, I approached his teacher with the possibility of having a party for him at school. She agreed readily, and so I bought little Dixie cups of ice cream, and went to the bakery to buy little cupcakes. My oven won't bake, or I'd have done it myself. Some gay napkins, and at about 2:30 on September 27th, I surprised him at school with a birthday party. He was pleased, surprised, of course, and I did feel that I had overrun the bounds of my rigid economy, but it did him a lot of good. To begin with, his was the first party of the year. I understand that there have been several other kids follow suit, but he set the precedent, and now being accepted socially, he was included in their games of beanbag, and as a result, his grades did improve. Rather, his work improved, for his report card has just come out. He seemed more interested in getting to school, came home with glowing accounts of the number of turns he'd had with the beanbag, and of one little girl who smiled at him and another little boy who shared his pretzel with him, and all of this came right on the heels of his party. That was the stumbling block I referred to in the other letter. The other kids had gone through kindergarten together, and since they knew one another, he was not included in their select little groups, and they'd pass the bag back and forth between themselves, and he could just look on. However, once he did catch on, I discovered a bit of bribery going on, and had to correct that too. It seems that there is a lady connected with the school cafeteria who buys a bunch of stick pretzels and then sells them to the kids at recess time for a cent per. Lewis asked for a penny to buy one, and I gave it to him, until I discovered that they could buy a turn at the bean bag for a hunk of pretzel. Wasn't he all excited and pleased with himself the day he came home and said that he and Chrissy had had all the turns at the game? It is a supervised play period. I wonder what became of the supervision. He still made superficial complaints about getting up to go to school, and made a big to-do about counting the days of the week off until Saturday and Sunday rolled around, when, like Daddy, he was off and could stay at home. It wasn't until he got sick with croup on Monday, October 15th, that he confided to Marguerite and Joe, who had been over for the weekend, that he really did like school, and was always glad when Monday rolled around and he could go back. Since he has been sick and lost time at school, that has been his greatest wail. Not that he is sick, but that now he can't go to school. As one problem cleared up, there was another one to face. He came home with a headache one day, and in inquiring to find the cause, he told me that one little David had grabbed him by the ankles and jerked his feet out from under him, and he fell backwards onto the macadam playground. That macadam playground is one of the things that is so hard for me to get used to. We always played on green grass, but I can't understand why it must be macadam. With that many kids on such a small place, no grass could grow, and I suppose even macadam beats mud. He must have hit pretty hard, for he said it hurt awful bad. He, David, did it to another little kid who cried and cried about it, but neither of them went to tell the teacher. I told him that he could not, of course, do the same thing to David, for there was always the possibility that he could fracture his skull, but if it happened again he should tell the teacher. It sounds as though the old theory of survival of the fittest is put into active practice at David's house, for if anyone got hurt it was usually at David's hands. But for some reason or another, David never got hurt, and was never called to account for his persistent manhandling. Not much later he came home and said his stomach was just awful sore. Upon questioning, we found that David had walked up to him, and without warning had doubled up both fists and hit him in the stomach, one fist after the other in rapid succession, and had probably hit him 3 or 4 times, before Lewis recovered from the shock and got out of the way. Still he had not tattled, so we held a family conference, showed him how to go about protecting and defending himself, and told him that what David needed was a bit of his own medicine. And while he should not start a fracas of any kind, if anyone picked on him, just give it back as fast as he could hand it out. Just a couple of days later, he came home with a long face and said he couldn't have any star, 'cause he'd been scolded. I asked him why, and it would seem that when David got what he'd so long been passing out, he ran and tattled on Lewis, and Lewis got what for from the teacher for being a bad boy and hitting little David. You should have seen the smoke that curled up over this residence, and when time came for Lewis to go to school in the morning, Mamma went along to confer with teacher. By then I had cooled off considerably, and that was probably a blessing. She received me kindly, and I told my tale. Told how Lewis had had a big bump on his head from the macadam playground, a sore stomach from David's tattoo, and that we had sat down and talked it all over, and that we encouraged Lewis to take care of himself. And didn't it seem funny that the little boy who caused all the ruckus could run to the teacher and get the other kid in trouble? I guess she could see that I was ready to decapitate if she gave me any argument, and so she suggested we get David over right now and give him what for. I said no, the damage was done. We couldn't undo the scolding that he hadn't deserved, but in the future she could determine the cause before punishment was handed out. I said I hadn't come to get the kid into trouble, that perhaps he had learned that Lewis would pass out what he got now, and I could see little point in rehashing it all. She said, "All right, Mrs. Graham, I'll cooperate with you," and I said, "Oh, I was sure you would, Mrs. Houk, or I wouldn't be here," and so made my departure. It seems that David hasn't been bothering Lewis much since, but I wonder if there's some other youngster taking his guff.
That just upsets me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how hypocrite. I mean, like, I get it, they're little kids.
Yep.
But at the moment that little, he got it, and he was like, "Oh no, people can't do to me what I do to them."
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. You know what? And you know what? I'm really glad that Lewis gave it to, or yeah, I'm glad Lewis gave it to him. I'm glad. Good for him. And you know what? He stopped bothering him. But this is one of the problems in schools, that the bullying, and bullies don't get it because nobody wants to tattle, because if they tattle, then guess what happens? They get it 10 times worse.
Right.
So, well, not unless you're David.
Yeah, I mean, bullies are cowards. That's where it comes down to. It's all basically a facade. They bully and they pick on kids that they think are weaker than them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lewis is not one to be picked on because he goes home and he's honest. He's the most honest kid with his parents. He says, "Here's what happened. We remember the incident at Sunday school with the boy who took the hat."
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And he was practicing in front of the mirror. Remember, he's like, "I'm gonna
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
be able to do this." And then Lou's like, "No, you're gonna work problems out yourself. Teach him protection. Teach him defense." Right? And they're just like, "Be careful. Don't hurt another kid." Because this is all the playground politics of everything going on. And he gets caught basically protecting himself the next time David tries to pick on him, and then Mrs. Houk blames him. And then we see Sweetie versus Mrs. Houk round 1. Really, essentially.
Oh, round 1.
Yeah, round 1. We're gonna get some more. Mrs. Houk is I was talking to my dad about Mrs. Houk. He's like, "I think I didn't like school in first grade because of Mrs. Houk."
Yep. You know what? The teacher definitely has a lot of influence on what your school. Yes, I can tell you the bad teachers I had, definitely my school performance suffered. Yeah. Definitely. I got in more trouble. Yeah, for sure. I got in trouble. Lewis has a wonderful, doting mother and a strong father who they took care of the situation. Like was beautiful, like the way that they handled things. And you have to wonder like what David's life was like, that he felt that he needed to dole out physical punishment to everybody, So I can't really blame him too much. However, you cannot allow a child. See, this is the problem. This is one of the problems I have with the government schools. David obviously was able to get away with that for a very, very long time until Lewis gave it back to him. And then he's like, right. "Oh, no, you can't do that. That's not right. I have to tell the teacher." See, but he was taught that it was okay for him to beat little kids up, but it was not okay for little kids to fight back. You see what I'm saying? And this is one of the reasons why I don't like classes with the same age, because they're learning their social skills from the same age. Now, this is like, obviously, this is just all talk, but if you have children who are older and younger, older children will generally start teaching the younger kids. And if like little kids were an older child would be like, "No, we don't do that here. You don't do that," and they're a little bit more apt to listen because they're like, they, consider them, older siblings, like, "Oh, you're my older sibling," and they revere them, So it really upsets me. And it's one of the reasons why I definitely didn't want to put my kids in school, because I didn't want to have to deal with the bullies. Sweetie, master class. Yeah. Master class in dealing with the situation, because she didn't go, "Get David over here so I can rip him." Yeah. So I can rip anyone. She's like, "No, this damage is done." Yeah. And I just want you to know from now on, if you're not taking care of it, Lewis is going to take care of it. Yeah. So, and if he does, maybe you need to use a little bit more discernment. It doesn't seem like she was a very attentive teacher.
Mrs. Houk is not attentive at this point in time. We know enough about Mrs. Houk to be like, I don't think she wants to be teaching anymore. I think that's fair to say. We're going to get that in some future content. We also get the playground politics with the beanbag game and the pretzels and bribery coming in. He's like, "Oh, we got to play the whole time." It's like, how many parts of your pretzel did you give to other kids to get involved with the game?
How many other little kids were sitting on the sidelines like you were just not a few weeks ago? Yeah. He definitely is like, "No, I got it all the time. Yeah, I win." Like,
and the birthday. He got some for the cupcakes and the ice cream. He got some points with the other classmates because, again, like they had kindergarten together. He didn't. But going into the next part of this letter, the school story continues. As I said before, we've just had his first report card. She passed them out on Friday, which was the day after the doctor sent him home from school. And since Lewis wasn't there, he didn't get his until Monday. In between those days, I talked to Sally's mama. Jeanne and Glenn will remember Sally. And she, who had bragged about how well Sally had been doing, was floored to have Sally's report card a D in reading, and several unsatisfactory marks in general attitude and interest. But still, she was quite pleased, and we had discussed our respective problems as we went to and from PTA meetings. And didn't Lewis's report card come out better than Sally's? And Sally was supposed to shine in kindergarten work that Louis never had. Louis got a D in reading, C in arithmetic, C in language arts, and B in social living. However, he got all satisfactory marks in the subdivision against 3 to Sally's. When I signed the report card to be returned, I wrote the teacher a little note, saying that I was somewhat disappointed in the grades. But when she found him satisfactory in interest and attitude, I felt that perhaps in the long run he was doing pretty well, and I held high hopes for better marks on his next report. I also asked if she thought I might give him some home instruction under her direction, and that I would appreciate any suggestions or comments she would care to make. I can tell from his reading around here and his ability to pick out words that he is improving, and he came home and told me that after reading for her one day, she complimented him that he was doing better work, and that she'd have to give him a better grade on his report card. So, there it is. I've decided my worrying at home is useless to a certain extent, though I still have to keep my finger in the pie to stir vigorously once in a while, but I'm confident that he's got the brains and the pride to do good work, so I'm not going to interfere much more now. His being sick is a detriment. I wish we could get that cleared up right away, but he is doing better, and I shall content myself with that, for now. As I said earlier, Lou has been painting the front room and is tightening up to face winter. We are discovering the endless things to do around the house, but an old house presents more problems than we can find solutions for. We'd like to get the 2 front rooms painted and fixed up so that we can move our choicest pieces in there, furnish the 2 rooms with antiques that we can use and still sell. A great many pieces sell better if they can be seen in the proper setting, and we can use the stuff until it sells. We've had to cut down on the sales, to some extent, on account of the bad weather and Louis being sick. I couldn't leave him to go alone. We went to the one I wrote you about where I got the photographic equipment and the thing that I could not identify. I'm quite sure by the nameplate in the bottom of the box that says Army Sighting Station that is useless to me. I wonder if you and Frank would like to have it to play with. I'm quite sure that some of the pieces are missing. It looks practically disemboweled, but there is a small motor. This information is from the nameplate, the Demaree Company, Racine, Wisconsin. For extra power hours, type E1Y2PB, model number 1019-263 DC, 210M, 24 volts, 5 amp, 10 min -05 HP. Is it any good to anyone? I'm sending a box of stuff that I've accumulated. Some of the photographic stuff, some old things from G-Mom Graham's that she culled out when they moved, some wool pieces that Mama might want for a comforter. We like this wool comforter so much. Louis has claimed it as his, and it is on his bed. If we run a boarding house or tourist home, I shall be grateful for the comforter. You may have these wool pieces for yourself, if you like and need a comforter, or if you don't. And if the Ladies' Aid isn't too high in their prices, I'll buy a wool bat and the backing and hire them to make me another one. Mama, will you write me about that? Or if any of the other kids need one, I'll donate the wool pieces to them. I just hate to have them lay around, and yet they shouldn't be thrown out either. Papa, you write about this photo stuff and the other thing? I've already explained to Papa how I happened to buy it. No, I shall not go into further detail now. I'll box it up and send it to you, if you want it. I shall comment on some of Papa's letters, but I'm not sure I shall be able to get around to all of them. I just discovered on one of Papa's letters a long note that I missed. I have sort of sloughed off on the Sunday school attendance. My conscience bothers me every time we miss, and as soon as the colds are taken care of, I resolve that we shall get into the habit of going regularly as we did for so long. I think that the Sunday school did a lot for Louis in preparing him for school, and perhaps that is one reason she did give him a good grade in his social living. We did buy an encyclopedia that I am very much disappointed with, and if I could do so, would send it back. We also bought a set that I haven't had time to look over at a sale. I think it could be a pretty good set, but that remains to be seen. So far, our books are boxed in the attic because there isn't a place to put them, but when Miss Darst gets this big gentleman's cabinet out, we are going to build a whole wall of shelves and unpack. I remember the Britannica as being very helpful when I was in school, and if nobody claimed it before me, I'd like to have it myself. I do remember your asking if I'd sent you a subscription to some magazine, but had misplaced the letter and am glad you mentioned it in this letter. I did not send it to you. I am as surprised that you're receiving it as you are. If you find out who sent it, you might let me know, just to satisfy my curiosity. I would like to have one clarinet. I don't believe there is any musical organization for small kids. Believe that is a high school organization solely. But if we had one, we might start a little training at this tender age. What I grieve over is a piano. For the first time we've a place to put one, and just the other evening Lou and I were wishing we had a piano. He has always wished he could play, and maybe we could all learn. Elizabeth and Bob have a beautiful little spinet piano that belonged to Bob's first wife, now deceased, and Elizabeth just despises it, and I think it is solely because it was the first Betty's, and Bob sets much stock in it. Neither of them ever touch it, and I'm beginning to wonder if given a little time she might not persuade him to sell it to us. Whether we could pay for it or not is another question. Jeanne, I've just used the last sheet of onion skin paper. If you want any more of these round robins, you'd better ask Iowa Pack to ease this situation.
Well, that was a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, Jeanne. Hey, Jeanne. Filch some paper from your employer. That'd be great. So, if and when that does occur, we'd like to thank Iowa Pack for their generous donations in the 50s to the circulars that Sweetie's writing to her family.
Thank you, Iowa Pack.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh man.
So she's got some stuff. Oh, I love this part. Where she's like, Lou has been painting the front room and tightening up to face winter. Like, ooh, we're getting all ready for winter time. I kind of like that. Like the fall time, you kind of do the prep work, you know? You're like, I got to batten down the windows or whatever they say. I've got to like take the screens out and make sure, you know, like all that kind of cool stuff. I love it. It's fun. So it's kind of like, ooh, they're getting ready. And so their whole plan is there's 2 rooms in the front. And I kind of want to like, it just really irks me that we don't have a floor plan even.
Yeah.
But so they have 2 rooms that they're going to kind of use as showrooms that they'll use maybe to like sit in or entertain, and they'll start selling stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a cool plan. I like that plan. This is cool. This is like basically where they wanted to go. So now they're working on that. Let's see what else.
Photographic equipment. And she's like, does anybody want this? Chester wants everything. I mean, is this really a question, sweetie? Send it to your dad. He's going to tinker with it. It's going to give him endless hours of entertainment. Laura would appreciate being left alone. If he's tinkering with that, he's not out puttering. So that's great.
Starting fires.
Yeah, so who knows what all that equipment is. But she's come across it at some various sales. And hey, broken things, you know, they're good at acquiring broken things and having them fixed up. So that's definitely there. And then, yeah, Sunday school, just as we just talked about, that helps with that social experience and things like that. So, and then the part about the piano, she was upset, if we remember, I think it was end of season 1, beginning of season 2. I think actually season 2, at the very beginning, Frank got the piano. And so this has always been like a little bit of a bittersweet thing. But now there's like maybe another piano that might be up for grabs because Elizabeth doesn't like it. It was
I'm sure she'd love to get rid of it, but I'm sure Bob would be like, no.
Yeah.
So like we're getting along. They're starting to get the house where they want it to, but they still have all their stuff everywhere. They have Lewis going to school. This is a different thing. I mean, and like now we got winter coming up, and then it's like it's December. You might as well figure out anything you really want to get done is got to take a back burner to Christmas.
Yep.
So and you know winter coming. So, like, I can see how she's a bit overwhelmed.
Lou's finger looks quite a bit better and does not pain him unless he hits it in working. The nail has yet to come off, but it doesn't look as bad as it did. The weed killing seems to have been pretty good. I noticed the vine up close to the house where I stood the day I lost Lou's ring. Kept close watch on it, and believe it is killed. However, I wonder if it does go down through the stem and kill the root as effectively as we thought. I missed one trailer of that particular vine, and it seemed to continue growing after the rest had turned yellow and withered away. I was a little extravagant with the chemical, but kept the can so I could buy more, and I aimed to get out there early in the spring to get the new and tender shoots. I agree with you in the belief that Miss Darst is unbalanced. Have thought so for some time now, and after hearing some comments from the family, have come to the conclusion that there may have been a screw loose in the family for a couple of generations. I do manage to keep my tongue under control for the most part, and 9 out of 10 days I don't pay too much attention, but sometimes the 10th day can be most trying. Mr. Murphy has promised to come on the 7th of December to take her to Georgia for a couple of weeks over Christmas. She agreed readily to going, but now is about to back out, and I'm afraid she'll do just that too. I hope she does go. Murphy's will get an idea of what we're up against, and she'll realize how lucky she is when she gets back home. And I need the rest myself. She blames me vehemently for Louis being sick. Says if I hadn't had his hair cut, it would never have happened, that it would be a crime to take his tonsils out, that her mother knew what to do to keep her kids' tonsils from getting bad and needing taking out. She voices her disapproval when Louis gets punished, and yet she seems to pick on him all the time about one thing or another. One of the neighbors let it slip that she is known through this neighborhood as the aristocratic poverty, and that she's never had it so good. I can only say I wonder why Uncle Ned ever had a sober moment. I just hope she does go. Lou and I could just do so much on this house, things that really need doing if she weren't here to get in the way, and cause so much trouble. In order to keep a low expense, I buy the cheaper cuts of meat, and it is true that it does get somewhat monotonous, and now she has taken to complaining of the same things all the time, and so every once in a while I splurge a little to keep her happy. She never fails to wait until the best TV program is on and then sit and read something out of the newspaper, something real exciting like how to change a pillow ticking without losing all the feathers, and just ruins the program for us. About the only good thing I can say about her at this late date is that she is a Democrat. I called and asked Lou about the micro switches, and he said he'd try to get them today so that they can be included in this box of stuff. Sally's grandmother has an 8mm projector, I believe, and I also think we can borrow it to see the film. I'm very anxious to see it, but doubt if I'll be very anxious to return it. Consult with Bill on this. Yuck, Jeanne, I already wrote you about the aureomycin being for trench mouth, and only 15 milligrams. Not sufficient. I wish that you or Papa would send me some Dexedrine. I need it badly. I wrote you about the money in the punch bowl going into Louis's bank account. He's got more money than we have. We both like the coffee pot immensely. Lou considers it more his than mine, since he is the bigger coffee drinker, but I notice that since the coffee is so much better, I drink more too. Miss Darst thought it nice, and has said that she notices it is better too. I'm glad for news around Lacona, though there are few names that I really know. I did know Mrs. Cochran. What finally caused her demise? I hope Mama is much, much better now, and that the new glasses will be a big improvement. I think mine needs some attention, possibly changing, and how I wish I could ask Papa to straighten them for me. Had a nice card from Sister for my birthday, but I'm short of time and can't really answer her letter. I've been going to school with the Goomp through Louis, and think of her often. I did not have a cake for myself, no oven, and none of the Grahams remember it except Lou. G-Mom had gone to New York for the weekend. Joe had 2 TV jobs this week, the editor on The Big Story, and a part on Robert Montgomery's Lucky Strike Theater. Small, but good. Enjoyed Frank's letter to Sister and the clipping on discipline. I often think I'm pretty rough on the discipline, but I've got a well-behaved kid to show for it, and am convinced that the more trouble comes from not enough discipline, rather than too much. Well, we couldn't get into a mega letter and not have some commentary on what's going on with Miss Darst.
Well, of course.
Isn't she miserable? But hey, thank goodness she's a Democrat, and this is the party of Harry Truman in the 50s. So they're big fans of Harry Truman and the Demaree family, so she's writing that over. We're going to see evidence of that in 1953. We're going to possibly hear from President Truman himself directly. So that's the only redeeming quality that she's finding, leaving politics aside. That's it. It's like, well, we're politically aligned. Everything else, awful. So There's something going on here, and, it's a hard thing to comment on an old family from 100 years ago. We'll remind everybody, especially newer listeners, Miss Darst is 90 right now. She was born in 1860, so she's sort of thinking back to who preceded Miss Darst. We're talking now histories of people that are 150 years ago and what could possibly be going on here. But we're going to have a lot of evidence of a lot of stuff in the coming letters from Darst, from the Wyckoffs, her cousins.
Let's talk about how she's like, if you wouldn't have cut his hair, he wouldn't have got tonsillitis or whatever. Like,
what?
Of course, like, duh.
Sure,
I can't believe I didn't think of that.
My mom could fix this. She could just fix the tonsils issue. Maybe, hey, if they had some miracle cure for tonsillitis in like 1870 that we don't know about, or the modern medicine at the time didn't know about, I'm sure Chester would be interested to talk to Miss Darst exactly about that subject and everything going on. But yeah, Darst miserable as ever. And then, of course, she's boarding. So she's having all the dinners with everybody. And it's like, my dad remembers it was like the same meal every night, but every now and then she kind of spice things up a little and get like a nicer piece of meat just to placate Darst. And the byproduct, of course, is that then Lou and Louis are like, oh, something different tonight, because it's usually just like hamburger meat and like beans and stuff like that. Just think about how much she's trying to save money, but she's going to splurge a little to keep Darst happy. And then Darst, they're going to be watching television, and Darst is going to ruin the moment. She can't.
Remember what I said? I was like, how, maybe if they have a television, like she can know. She's like, oh, here's another. See, you have to appreciate Miss Darst's inventive way of annoying other people.
Yeah.
Like, she really like goes out there. She's like, she thinks outside the box. She's like, no, you guys need to hear this article about changing your pillow ticking. Like, this is important.
Right.
Like, I mean, also like sticking in her craw is I love that, sticking in the craw, is all the furniture laying around the house. Like, I'm sure that it's kind of cluttered, and they're not able to do things because she gets in the way. She hides Lou's watch, and then Sweetie says something about she lost Lou's ring.
Something's going on with the ring. Sometime when she was dumping probably way too many chemicals trying to kill poison ivy.
Which you gotta feel like some sympathy for her. The poor thing went through the poison ivy. She's probably like, I'm killing all of this.
Yeah, I'm getting it good. Right? Yeah, so she's letting out her emotions by killing the poison ivy. That's I think like her outlet for anger, certainly, that's going on. The one redeeming thing here is Miss Darst might leave for Christmas. Maybe Mr. Murphy will take her to Georgia. And we're not going to find out in this episode if that's actually the case, because already Darst is like, I'm not sure if I want to go, and she's like, please leave. So
I don't know. That might be yet another inventive way that Miss Darst is making everybody miserable. Well, actually, I can see how happy you would be if I wasn't here, so maybe I'll just stay.
Yeah.
How would you get your newspaper articles in the middle of your television programs if I'm not here?
Right. How would you learn about the pillow issue? And I'm sure the fact that that's so specific. I don't think Sweetie's just saying this is the type of thing she would talk about. She probably did read an article about pillows. I have to imagine this happened, which kind of makes me want to look for articles about pillow fillings in the area from 1951 from this time period to be like, this is the article. So if I find something about that, I'm just going to like post it and maybe read it.
If you're bored tomorrow,
I'll make a short and I'll be like, public service announcement. I'm gonna look for it. So
you guys need to know how not to lose them feathers. They're very expensive.
And I'll do it in the Darst voice. I'll be like, public service announcement from Miss Darst. So I'm gonna go looking for that article because that had to have happened. So
but the one saving grace, the one thing that I think is really out of all of this, they have good coffee now.
Oh, thank you, Jeanne. I agree. That's important.
Now they have some good coffee. Well, at least there's that.
Maida and Frank, thanks for the nice card and for Maida's letter. It seems to be out of hand at the moment, and so I can't really answer it. I hope that the kids are all over the flu. I often think I have my hands full when one gets sick, but you must be on the jump even more so. This 2-story house causes me much running that the new house spared me, and often I bed Louis down on the Davenport with TV to entertain, rather than keep running the stairs. Even now, more than before, I often think of your push-button house and turn a bit green at the edges. If I just had hot water, it would be a blessing. Jeanne, I'm glad you liked the cookbook. But about the recipe for the hamburgers, you'll find a recipe for meatballs supreme, and then right above it is a recipe for chili balls or something like that. And my advice to you is to take some of each recipe and mix it up good, for that is just what I did. Accidentally started on one recipe and lost track and ended up with the other recipe. It was a rather happy accident, though, and from then on continued to make them the same way. You just turn up the vinegar jug till it glurgs a couple of times. Yak, yak. Frank, our telephone number is Doylestown 4381. It is now listed under the name Marion C. Darst, but she is tired of paying for it, and so we're having it put in our name as soon as we can. And the next time Papa comes to visit you, why don't you see how Bell's system works traveling from Chicago to Philadelphia? You might send me your number, too. The only one I have is the old one now passed. We are getting the first day covers, I think. Better check on that before I say for sure. Lou considers the coffee pot part his, and so a card for his birthday is sufficient. Papa seems to think your buy on the gun was exceptionally good. Hope you get what you want, and without any accidents. I'm glad Lou isn't an enthusiastic hunter. Papa, when you send medicine, Dexedrine and aspirin, don't send Benadryl. I've tried taking some for my runny and stopped-up nose, but it doesn't do any good. It does make me sleepy, but I don't believe it relieves my nose any. I got pretty good results with 1% neosynephrine. But it is expensive as the devil to buy outside, and the Navy gives it out to us an eyedropper full at a time. Jeanne's cough lozenges just about saved Lou's life when he was coughing away, but what I need is Dexedrine, for I'm in a terrible slump. Always got to feeling like an orphan when my birthday rolls around and I'm so far away from home, and then Thanksgiving is meant for families too. And besides, when I am sick with a cold, I'm just as apt to get sick at heart for Mama and Papa. I guess I'd better stop now and get this in the mail to be picked up. I've been writing here for a long time, need some nose drops, and it is almost time to start Sunday dinner. Besides, I can hear Louis yelling at Miss Darst, and for the sake of peace, I'd best find something to occupy him. Well, Papa, I've taken time to sort of make up to you for my neglect in writing, have told you all of Louis's troubles and their solution, if such it can be called, and have brought you up to date to a certain extent. A general letter like this does not really answer your individual letters, but by the time I've gotten the general topics taken care of, I've run out of time, and the letter is much too heavy. I do want to call your attention to the fact, though, that I did mail your letter, but Miss Darst called me for something, and I wrote Lacona, and left off Iowa, and they sent it back for insufficient address. Thank you both for the Christmas gift. I shall get something for Louis, and put your name on it. I'm watching for Jeanne's movies, and of course, many answers to this letter. Special love to Florence, and KM, and R. We'd love to hear from you, too. Love to all. Sweetie, Lou, and Louis.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, that was a lot.
It was a lot. But going into this section, she's just checking in with everybody. We hear about happy accidents in the kitchen. Again, the hamburger that he has every night. She's trying to just fix up meatballs, things that she can make with hamburger all the time. But I wanted to talk about the telephone number. That was the main thing. Doylestown 4381. And my father clarified this, and I actually realized how this really works by watching the movie Marty Supreme, which was just out. I didn't care for the movie. Sorry, guys, who produced that film. I loved Kevin O'Leary's performance because I love Shark Tank. I thought he did a great job, so shout out to him. But in Marty Supreme, it's set in the 50s, and you actually get an example of this. That phone is a party line. And what that means is that that Miss Darst's line is shared by Darst and her neighbors. So it's like an open line. So if you're on the phone talking with someone and one of the neighbors has to make a call, they pick up the phone, they can hear your conversation.
Ooh.
That's, because that, like, they share the line, hence the concept of the party line. And I was watching Marty Supreme, and he picks up the phone to make a call, and there's a call going on, and they're like, yo, get off the line. And I'm like, oh, that's how that worked. So if you watched Marty Supreme and you watch for that little moment, you actually get the example of the party line. But I thought that's important to note. They can't just call out all the time because there's other neighbors that could be calling on that line and calling out. And if you don't want your neighbors to hear what you're talking about, you gotta have trust in your neighbors these days. So, yeah.
That seems like a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it wasn't back then, but I'm glad that that's not the case anymore.
Same. Yeah, absolutely.
There was something interesting that she said that I was confused about when she's like, she talks about the stairs, which, yeah. And then she says, even now more than ever, I often think of your push button house.
Isn't that cute? Push button
Do you
house.
think like they live in an apartment or something?
No, I think it's the nature of how much automated machinery that Frank's family has versus this house built so long ago. The modern conveniences that Frank and Maida have. I think that's what she means. Yeah. We have very much today push button houses.
Oh, we do.
We have buttons that push themselves for us on schedules. So
I have what, you know what, the other day I was sitting on the couch and the remote was too far away, so I opened up my phone and got on the Roku app and used my phone to change the channel.
Yep. That's where we're at right now.
I was really proud of myself.
Oh, it's cool when it works. I've started using my automatic start on the car. I hadn't used it for years, but it was like really cold outside, and I thought I should really try this, and it's amazing. And then I messed with my dad because he was out shoveling the car. He was really being helpful. He loves to just go out and get the shoveling done. We'd had a lot of snow. He's outside shoveling my car out. I can hear him shoveling and see him outside the window and the car. And I'm like, I was about to head out in a bit. And so as he's right near the car, I start the car remotely. And he doesn't use his remote start. I guess he thought I'd come outside, and I'm like, I'm going to mess with him. So I'm looking out the window. I click the automatic start on the phone, and he turns around. He's like, I didn't hear him come out. And then he goes over to the car window and he's like, no one's inside. He's trying to figure out what's happened. And he's like,
that's so funny. Oh, you're bad. You're funny. That was funny.
So
I like
that. But
you're so funny. So what else is there? Anything else? Oh no, just like, hey, she's like wrapping it up. She's doing like a Midwestern goodbye in letter form, just like that.
Yeah, she's homesick. She's thinking about Thanksgiving.
She's homesick
and time with the family.
She doesn't want to end it, but she also knows like this is it,
Right.
And it is awful. I feel really bad for her, like being so far away from her family.
Yeah,
and she's but yeah, this is it. This is the life that she has. So she tried to send a letter and it got sent back.
Yeah. Whoops, forgot Iowa.
Yeah, forgot Iowa. You need to do that. You need to do that. But other than that, wow, yeah. She really packed a lot into this. Wasn't like I said, and I am truly exhausted.
Yeah, she knew it. She's like, I'm gonna really exhaust everybody with this. But Chester does write a response. And I know like this episode's going a little long, but Jamie, let's see what Chester writes in response to Sweetie's Thanksgiving circular. And here it is.
Lacona, Iowa, November 1951. Dear Jeanne, I found some medicine that Sweetie wanted and am sending it on to her. You need not send her any from your source. We got a long letter, same as you, from her today. Seems she has but cares. Hope the sun will melt off the snow for us and make the roads better. Your Papa.
Well, that's an understatement.
There we go. Okay, so he got the letter.
He got the letter. Yeah. So there it is.
And this is how I came into this situation. Okay, so I have my book, and I'm like doing all my things, and I'm like, oh, cool, a Chester letter. And so I see my Chester letter. See, I'm like, here's the end of it, and I go to turn the page, and it's like 3 sentences.
Yeah, that's just how it works.
Like, this is wrong.
Denied.
What is happening?
Yeah.
I mean, his letter was as short as hers was long.
Yeah, little postcard to Jeanne.
But it's good to know that Dr. Chester is doing okay, and that he did receive her letter, especially considering that she wrote it, what? Hold on a second, let me just get there. Pack a lunch for this. I got to go all the way back. November 25th.
Right.
So she must have sent it out, and it probably only took a few days to get to them. And then he was able to respond to Jeanne, obviously. I'm sure he responded to her as well. But, yeah, so, but, yeah, and, like, even truly, I'm glad it's short because, like I said, that was a lot to go through. And that is the end of the letters for this episode.
Yep. But heading into next week, we're heading towards Christmas. 1951. We really would like to find out if Miss Darst would just get out of Doylestown for a couple weeks. Sweetie needs rest. I know she's going to get rest, but she at least needs Darst out of the picture. She would like to have a Darst-free Christmas. So we can see if we can find out if that's going to happen in the next episode here as we head towards episode 97. We're getting really close to episode 100.
I know.
The Love Sweetie podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show.
We'll see you next week.